Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Cinephile and our second week of Indiana Jones. Today, we're talking about 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Jake, what are your thoughts on this one? This one is a little bit different than Raiders last week.
Yeah, it is considerably different. This, for the longest time, was my least favorite Indiana Jones movie. Um, I'm gonna wait till we do Crystal Skull and to give a full ranking because this is honestly okay. I rewatch Indiana Jones movies fairly frequently. But as far as like watching all of them through, this is the first time in a while that I've done that. Maybe honestly since Crystal Skull because I remember watching the original three leading up to Crystal Skull, but I don't know if I've sat down and sequentially watched all four of them since. But no, I don't even have this one on DVD because I used to hate it so much as a kid. It scared me too much. Yes, I'm a wuss, but it scared me. What?
Look, I have Rise of Skywalker on Blu-ray, and that movie is garbage, but it's a part of the Star Wars franchise, so I have to have it. Like it's not
I know,
there's no sometimes you just gotta
I
take
know.
one for the team, you know?
And okay, upon rewatch, I liked it better than what I remembered. I felt like there were there's a fair amount of redeemable qualities, and even if it's not the best indie movie, it's not the best Steven Spielberg movie. It's still a solid movie. Um, as far as where it fits in with the rest of the Indiana Jones movies, it's quite a bit different, but overall, still a solid movie.
Yeah, and when you say it's quite a bit different, I mean, you're not wrong. This movie, so this is a prequel to the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which a lot of people don't realize, obviously, because this one came out 3 years afterward. But it is a prequel, and it's more pulpy than Raiders. Uh, we talked last week about the inspiration for Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the like pulp kind of action adventure serials of the 1930s. And this movie for sure leans into that kind of pulpy aspect to it.
Yeah.
I mean, just from the get-go. I was watching a documentary on the making of this movie, and I mean, even from the opening Anything Goes sequence, which I love. One, because I'm a sucker for musicals and show tunes. I love it. But the fact that George Lucas literally was just like, all right, we need to open it with a some sort of musical number. He's like, you've always wanted to direct musicals, Steven, so let's just do a musical number. And and it's weird because it's like this. There's no, and I'm going to use this word a couple of times through this episode, like verisimilitude,
Mm-hmm.
where they go back into the back, and then it's like this kind of like 1940s kind of musical, movie musical look, where they kind of go in the back and they're on these tiered sets and things like that, and it's it's different. And it just kind of screams, hey, this is different right from the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Really, it's like you think about this movie, it's kind of I don't know, I feel like this is more all over the place than Raiders. Because I mean like by the end of this movie, you almost forget that we started this with a late 30s jazz musical opening number in a Hong Kong nightclub. It's Hong Kong, right? Or
yeah.
Hong Kong. Okay. In a Hong Kong nightclub. And it's like looking at the rest of the movie, you're like, that is so out of place. But it's like it works in a way. Like I don't hate it. It's a fun way to start the movie. And it really it introduces us to all our main players right off the bat, or most of our main players, at least our heroes.
Right.
Um, so
And it's also interesting because the even the logo font for this is different. obviously it's now Indiana Jones, right? That's the franchise, but
Hmm.
the font for this one is different. And especially, if you look at Raiders and then Last Crusade, which we'll talk about next week, like the font is a certain look, and then this one is just like the poster. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. It
it
lets you
feels like a
know.
sequel. It feels like a sequel. You know what I
Yeah, it
mean?
feels like it embraces that sequel nature to it, but also lets you know, hey, this isn't Raiders 2. Like
Uh-huh.
this is definitely something really different. I know it's a lot darker,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but like George Lucas really wanted to model this after Empire Strikes Back, which came out, in 1980, and then this movie was shot in 1983. So right after Return of the Jedi, um, there are some scenes. I literally just finished watching a documentary, so there are some scenes of like behind the scenes footage of Harrison Ford still in he's still having that longer hair from Return of the Jedi, before
Yeah.
they cut it for the movie. So I don't know, it's kind of cool, like Indiana Jones with long hair. Um,
That'll be the
but
sixth one.
they're not making a 6-1. I'll tell you that much.
Harrison Ford ain't gonna live that long.
Yeah, nah, he ain't doing that. This also, it's we're just gonna keep saying this movie is so different because it is,
Hmm.
and I like it. I am an apologist for the first half of this movie. Like
Okay.
the first half of this movie, I really like. It's a little different, and it's different for Indiana
Hmm.
because he's kind of thrown into something that wasn't really planned.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Raiders that just came before it, um, this expedition was kind of planned. He's like, okay, I'm going to go to Nepal. I'm going to get this. Then I'm going to go to Tanis. I'm going to go to Cairo, Egypt, and kind of figure things out from there. But this is kind of like he's thrown into something completely new.
Yeah.
Um, and even from having to try and fly a plane or crash a plane,
Yeah.
which is ironic because Harrison Ford knows how to fly a plane.
He's quite
And
good at it, actually.
yeah, and he's actually good at crashing planes because I think he's crashed at least one.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's Harrison
Um,
Ford. He gets a pass.
yes, he does. Um,
Really, you point out it's interesting how structurally it's kind of stories different than Raiders, because Raiders, I really guess until you brought it up, hadn't really kind of put this all together. In Raiders, it's really it's very much a race between the good guys and the bad guys. Who's going to get this arc first, right? Um, and this movie really, the best way I can describe it is it's like a side quest for Indy. Like he he's just trying to get out of Hong Kong and ends up in India, and then kind of gets distracted by this archaeological artifact that's been stolen from this village, and he wants to bring it back. I don't know. He has the whole scene where after he finds out about the stone, and he puts it together what the missing stone that was taken from this village was, and he's sitting, like he leaves the village and he's like sitting on this mountaintop, and he's having this moment where it's like, should I get this stone back? And he comes to the idea of like, yeah, I should get it back, but is it we're kind of left with this question: does he get it back because he wants to save the village, or does he get it back because this would be a heck of a find? And he would be the line, I believe, is "Fortune and glory, kid."
yeah.
Um,
Fortune and glory.
and so it's kind of, even from that moment, kind of delving into Indy's, I don't know if you could say darker themes, but more, I should say, less heroic themes, right? He's tempted by um this self interest, this desire for like, oh, if I get this back, maybe I can give one to the villagers and then I take another one back and I'm loaded and world famous. You know what I mean? It's kind
Right.
of that moment of you can sense this internal tension for Indy, and he really doesn't make a decision on what his motive is at that point. He just kind of decides, well, we're going to go do it and figure out what we do with it at the end. So,
And if you look at it, it's obviously a prequel from that point of view because he has more jaded motives,
mhm.
like you said. I mean, he's more like a Belloc, honestly.
Yeah,
He's doing it for fortune and glory. He's not doing it because it belongs in a museum.
yeah,
Um, and then we see the change by Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I think it's really it just shows that he grows as a character through these movies because he kind of starts out. I mean, what he got um, that emperor in the little
yeah,
urn, got the emperor because for money. I mean, for the diamond.
really, yeah.
I mean, and that diamond wasn't something significant. I'm reminded of there's this. I think it's in Futurama where there is like a mummy that they find. It's like this really small mummy, and then one of the guys eats it, and he's like, "It's as good as beef jerky or something." There's like, I know,
Oh
I'm
my
just so
gosh.
when I see this small little urn, I'm just like reminded of that constantly. Um, but yeah, so he has these different motives throughout the film, and I think that's really interesting. It's also really interesting to see him paired up.
Mhm.
Obviously, we have Sola in the first film, and then Marion Ravenwood.
Yeah.
And this time we have Willie Scott and Short Round. The OG.
You
I
you love Short Round.
he's a goat, man. I wrote down some of his lines. I mean, these are gold, you know. And I wrote them as he said them, so
Yeah.
they're not grammatically correct. He said, "Feel like step on fortune cookies. Hold on to your potatoes, Dr. Jones.
You love that one. You say that all the
Hold on to
time.
your potatoes, Dr.
I think
Jones."
that didn't you obviously we've talked about Kia Kwan already this year for an Oscar special, but I'm pretty sure you quote that line in the Oscar special too.
Like if he were to say in this movie, "Hold on to your potatoes, Dr. Jones," I one would have lost. Yeah, because it's like so out of left field. Like what? Um, he goes, "Indy, you're my best friend." Like, dude, calm down. You're 12, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean, your best friend? And then he said, um, so when the big guy, I don't think it may be Mola Ram. No, it's not Mola Ram. It's the other guy.
Mhm.
He's holding up Indy, and he goes, "I kill you. Drop him down. I kill you." And I was like, "You're gonna kill him? You're 12." Um, and so we get just minimal backstory from this character saying essentially that he pickpocketed Indy and then he's gone on many adventures with
Yeah.
Indy now. Um, but I mean, he makes this movie.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, probably my favorite scene from this whole movie is one of my favorite scenes from the whole movie is the poker game in the jungle. As like Willie Scott's like got this snake in her hair, or is it a bat? Some creature. She freaks out about so many different.
She's holding like a bat. It's just
Yeah.
like this. Yeah.
So she's freaking out about the bat. She's like running around screaming in the background as Indy and Short Round are arguing about who's the worst cheater at this poker game because Indy gets caught taking an extra card, and then Short Round's caught with aces up his sleeve. Just,
Yeah. He
they
said, I'm very small. You cheat very big.
it's this whole and they like meander between English and Chinese and back to English, and so he only get all the while like this hysterical shrieking woman is running around. It's just like I don't know. That's just that scene always makes me smile. And like I've always loved Short Round. Like even when I like was too afraid of this movie as a child to watch
Oh
it,
yeah.
I was like, why can't Short Round be in a better movie?
I mean, honestly, this movie should have forget Indiana Jones. It should have been Short Round and the Return of the Thuggee Cult. I was like,
Honestly,
honestly, I would watch that. And
I
if they
need
would have
to.
named it like Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? That's like almost the same thing. It's like who's Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
Like who's Short Round? You know? And
A legend. A
apparently
legend is who
a
Short Round
legend.
is.
Apparently Short Round was the writer's dog's name.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, so wait, so is it like just like a fat dog? It's like short and round,
Why do I just imagine like this overweight pug?
just rolling around everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh goodness.
that's so this short round is such a great counterbalance to
Yeah.
Indy. Because Indy plays it, obviously Harrison Ford plays it more straight. He's
Hmm.
this archaeologist, he's smart, which we see a little bit more of just how smart he is in this movie.
Hmm.
Because obviously he knows a little bit about the Thuggee cult and things like that, but some of the things he knows about Indian culture, um, and being able to understand what some of the people are saying in this
Hmm.
village. I mean, he's incredibly intelligent, and that's one of the things that makes him such an interesting protagonist. Is because it's not just that he's like this action hero; he's like also really, really smart.
Yeah. And I mean like it's believable too, you know what I mean? And it is like when you really think about it, like he's very worldly and is able to like, you know, slip into different cultures and understand like the dynamics and whatnot and the history behind that so well. So you really like I don't know. I feel like the intelligence he has in this movie almost like confirms like, oh yeah, even though we don't see him be a professor in this movie like we do in Raiders and the Last Crusade, um, it's like a reminder in your mind, like, oh yeah, this guy's day job is a college professor.
Right, right, and that compare that and balance that with just the idiocracy I keep looking down to my left here. I've got my one sheet. It's like actually really
Hey,
small. So if folks are like, what the heck is he keep looking at? It's like I'm not like looking at the time like let's hurry this up. No, I'm looking at this. But Willie Scott is
no,
just so dull in this movie. And you just compare that, it makes him look like an absolute genius
yeah,
because
yeah,
she's just so dumb. And this movie, I haven't watched all the way through in a long time. I get to about, like I said, I'm an apologist for the first half of this movie. I love the first half of this movie. Um, I get to about the halfway point and then I stop watching, which is really funny. Um, but every time I'm like, Willie Scott is such an annoying character,
oh
and their
my gosh,
romance
yes,
doesn't make any sense.
yeah. It's I feel like it's made all the worse. Like I feel like if every Indiana Jones like female, all of his love interests were like this, that would be one thing. But we went from I can't talk. Marion Ravenwood and being such this strong and witty and smart counterbalance to Indy and really kind of in some ways Indy's equal to such a letdown in Willie Scott because this woman like can't do anything on this adventure for herself.
Right. She can sing Mandarin.
Yeah,
She can sing in Mandarin. She can sing anything goes in Mandarin, but she can't like do anything else for herself.
right. And so
Yeah.
it's such I don't know, it's such a letdown and she's so annoying and I don't get it considering that Kate Capshaw like this is how she and Steven Spielberg met on this movie and they got married and they're still
Steven
married
Spielberg rizzed her up good.
and
I know you hate that word
I
riz.
hate that word as much as I hate. It's as annoying as Willie Scott. But I'm like, she must be one heck of an actress because I refuse to think that Steven Spielberg would marry a woman like Willie Scott.
Well, and actually, you know what else is really funny?
What?
Willie was Steven Spielberg's dog's name.
Gosh.
This is not a joke. Like I'm not like this is legitimate. This is
What
true.
is it with this movie and or this franchise and dogs? Like Indy's named after George Lucas's dog.
Short
Well,
Round is named after the writer's dog. Yeah,
what's
it's
with the
really interesting,
dogs?
but you're absolutely right. Yeah, they got married after this. And so they were showing some behind the scenes footage in this documentary I was watching. I was like, this dude is crushing hard. Like
Really?
I'm watching the one of the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest.
Yeah.
I know it's not your opinion. Greatest filmmaker of all time. Just crush so hard on this chick. And it is so funny to see because when Short Round during the like mine sequence, he takes a like a wooden bat almost and
Uh-huh.
hits a guy over the back who's carrying Willie. And the bat broke and it hit her in the eye. So she had a black eye.
Oh no.
And so she came to set the next day and the whole crew had black eyes, which I was like, that is I would have done that.
Yeah,
Like
you
let's be
would have.
honest, I would have thought that was like a clever, cute way. So I just thought it was so funny to watch him do this. But yeah, that's how they met. They met on the set here.
Yeah.
But I just felt like the romance between Willie and Indy didn't make sense. Like there's more, there needed to be more there.
Yeah. It's
Um,
very flat.
yeah, it's
Like
like
it.
we needed more moments
Mhm.
between the two, and we didn't get enough because you can start out as a really annoying character, but you can be endearing. You can like maybe she grows on you.
Yeah.
But if you don't have those moments, then there's no payoff.
Yeah, because I mean, I think one of the scenes that stuck out on this rewatch to me was the argument scene where they have after the most disgusting dinner on the face of the planet. Um, the argument they have in the hallway, um, where it's like, are they gonna hook up? But then like they get mad at each other because the other one's like, I don't know, they're trying to like prove they're not that easy, like while also trying to seduce the other one. It's this weird argument, but like it really works. That scene, like I feel like is is the one scene where like I want to believe that they have like an attraction there. Like there
Mhm.
could be this romance there. Um and so it's I don't know, it's seeing that because like it's a well done scene and then like the whole like the cutaways or not cutaways, but like it cuts back and forth between each of them in their own rooms after they've stormed off. And then obviously Indy gets like strangled and all that. But seeing that scene makes me like, oh, like there could have been something there, but it's just it gets glossed over in the story.
Well, and it's interesting you mention when he gets strangled because in real life, Harrison Ford had a herniated disc from that.
Mm-hmm.
So when he takes the guy and he pulls him up over him,
Yeah.
um, he herniated a disc, and it was so bad they had to shut down production and send Harrison Ford, and he went and got like a. At the time, it was kind of like a controversial surgery, or it wasn't a surgery that had really been performed a lot,
Yeah.
and it worked really well. But the whole mine sequence was shot with a stunt double.
Yeah. Vic Armstrong, he's a British stuntman who apparently has an uncanny resemblance to Harrison Ford. Like I read that they didn't really have to do a lot post production wise because like they look so similar in like their physique and some of their like their face structure and everything. So um it's interesting that like that's the stunt double.
And essentially what they did is when Harrison Ford came back, they just did kind of pickup shots
Yeah.
almost, or just close-up shots.
Yeah.
Um, so when you watch the movie, all those action sequences aren't Harrison Ford, but it's not because he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, he got in really good shape for this movie because his shirt was off for like half the movie.
Right.
I mean, the poster has a shirt off.
Yeah.
So obviously that was like important to him.
Yeah. And like he's always been someone that likes to do his own stunts as well. And the rest of the franchise does a lot of his own stunts. And so it's interesting that this is like the one time that like Vic Armstrong actually like got to do like his full job.
Right, right. You know, he's just like, all right, sit over there and look pretty. You know, me, Harrison Ford, I'll take care of all your
Yeah.
job for you. Um, so some of these action sequences, like the mine cart and the raft, um, were both ideas that Spielberg and Lucas had for Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
But there were so many action set pieces in Raiders that they couldn't add them into that movie.
Right.
So they tabled them and then put them in here. And I like the minecart sequence a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really like the raft sequence as well.
Yeah. No, I think both are well done. And yeah, I don't know. They're well done.
Yeah, you're like nothing more to add there. Also Mola Ram.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you had some thoughts on Mola Ram. I just wanted to say that that guy shaved his head to be Mola Ram, and he never grew hair back
Yeah.
again.
What's his name? I wrote it down.
Lex Luthor.
No, Amrish Puri is his name. But no, he was I believe he's Indian. I believe he's an Indian actor. This is actually it's shot in Sri Lanka
Mhm.
because the Indian government wouldn't let them shoot in India because they didn't like how Indian culture was portrayed. That they thought that people would take this as a reflection on Indian culture, which it's a criticism that people have had of this movie.
For sure, and it's warranted.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree 100%. So they had to shoot it in Sri Lanka, but I believe he's Indian, and he was like a somewhat well-known Indian actor. And then they had him shave his head for this, and he was like, it was such an iconic look and terrifying look that he just kept it for the rest of his life and all of his performances. And I think it's he gives a really good performance here. It is genuinely terrifying at some points.
Yeah, and as you kind of texted me, you're like, he's definitely a different kind of villain
Oh
for Indy
yeah.
to face. He's not or he's not an antagonist like Belloc was, where it's essentially Indy gone bad
Mm-hmm.
in a way. This is like a guy who, um, it's just such a different kind of villain.
Yeah, it's like Indy is with Belloc in Raiders is like so much a battle of wits, trying to outsmart the other one. And they play on a very like similar playing field, if you will. But like Mola Ram is literally like this like the leader of this death cult. I mean, they worship Kali, the Hindu goddess of death. And so it's such Indy really has to play his game and get in that headspace, which, as we've said, he's smart enough that he can get by and get through there, but he has to adapt, to that situation. And so it's such a different dynamic than we see in Raiders, I think.
And it was terrifying enough that and they realized so Lucas and Spielberg realized how dark this movie got in the edit. And so Spielberg called up the head of the Motion Picture Association. At that time, it was the MPAA of America, being that last A, and said there needs to be something in between a PG and R
Right.
in ratings.
Yeah.
And so he said it should be like a PG-13, PG-14, something like that. And that's where they came up with the idea of PG-13, was because this movie was and it really is, because it wasn't, I don't think it needed to be rated R,
Yeah.
but it also was not PG.
No, because I mean, I guess in my mind, like I could think of like, okay, like if I see something's PG, like once you hit 10, like 10 and up, I feel like
Right.
is a safe. And like I don't know, I don't know if I would let my 10-year-old watch this, you know?
Oh, I mean,
Because
look,
like
my
it's
10-year-old probably is gonna watch all these, but when it comes to movies, my wife is it's gonna be rough. Because I'm gonna be like, all right, let's go watch
yeah.
Star Wars. You're gonna be like, no, it's too scary. No, no, I like
Nah.
I gotta indoctrinate them early,
Oh
right?
my
She's like, do
gosh.
you want to indoctrinate our kids? Yeah, yeah. She goes, here are the divorce papers. Yeah. Obviously,
Uh,
I've thought about this a lot.
yes. Shocking.
But no, this movie, um, the word, and I said I bring it back up, verisimilitude. I think with Raiders, they do it in such a way that's believable.
Yeah.
Like that, like legitimately you could find the ark.
Hmm.
Here, about halfway through, it starts to not be as believable
Yeah, it
with the
almost
whole,
like it delves almost into like I would almost argue like it almost delves into like a horror movie. Not just talking about like um the gore, obviously like that plays into it, and the intense themes here, but like in the way that like it goes into like this like otherworldly supernatural thing that like is not real,
right.
but at the same time like you have so many people in this movie believing that it's real, and it asks you as the audience to believe it's real. um and so it looking at it from as like like an outsider, like outside the movie, you're right, it very much struggles with verisimilitude, because we have like people like ripping hearts out and being lowered into lava, and like their heart bursts into it's like it's so many like weird things, but like they when you're immersed in it in the movie, I feel like is when it's like it gets really like too much.
Yeah. And the other issue with verisimilitude is the edit. There's more of this movie. And I had sent you a link to a video
Yeah.
where they talk about some of the scenes that were cut out. But upon a rewatch, I mean, when they Indy goes, okay, I'm gonna go and get the stones. Like literally 20 seconds before, that whole place was packed with people,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're all gone. And some of the like at the beginning of the third act, some of the things that like end of the second act, beginning of the third act, some of these things that happen don't make sense narratively.
No.
And obviously, you don't need to see every single element of every single action that happens. That's why we have editing. But some of the things that happened seemed really kind of random and sporadic. And I don't know. It was just, did you kind of see that as well? Like there something was lost there that
Yeah, it definitely, we cover a lot of ground in this movie. Let me just start by saying that we cover a lot of
we
ground, and
do.
I think um all three of the original, I call it the original trilogy of Indy, using some Star Wars terminology here. Um, all three of them run very tightly around right around 2 hours. Like
Yeah.
it's like a margin of like I want to say like plus or minus 4 minutes from 2 hours. All three of the movies fall into there. And I think part of that is, it's kind of harkening back to the formula of an adventure serial, from the 30s, right? They, it was under the studio system. And so producers had very strict, like, you know, how long this is going to run. Like you decided how long the movie was going to run before you even shot it.
Right.
And so it very much has that feel to it, but I felt like this movie, I don't know, like I guess I would have liked to see some I would have liked to see perhaps some of the extra footage, like you talked about, left in the end of the second, in the third act, and some of this kind of, I don't know, superfluous stuff at the beginning towards the midpoint of the movie left out. Like my least favorite scene in this whole thing is the whole like disgusting banquet. When we're eating like snakes inside snakes and
Chilled
eels
monkey
and
brains.
chilled monkey brains and eyeball soup. Like that is just flat and nasty.
Yeah, and it also like doesn't add anything.
Exactly. The
Well, the
interesting
one thing it does add is that they aren't Hindu because they eat, or I don't know, somebody said something about eating meat. And the fact that they had chilled monkey brains clued Indy into the fact that there's something wrong here. But at the
Hindus
same
eat meat.
right, so that's why I'm like, there's something somebody said
Yeah.
about anyway.
Hindus don't eat cows because cows are
Right.
sacred in Hinduism. But anyways, like the interesting part of that scene, like the important part is the like conversation at the end of the table between Indy and the prime minister and like the kid. Oh, what's his title?
Maharaja.
Thank you, Maharaja. The kid Maharaja and the British officer. Like that's the interesting part of that scene, not the like
Right.
disgusting food we're eating. So why do you include that? Like I don't see the story purpose served there. So to your point, yes, I think there are some things left out towards the end and some gaps. You get caught up in the pace of the movie, and I think it's easy to kind of overlook them. But when you slow down and think about it, like we're doing here, yeah, there are some gaps left out that make some actions and choices a little unsupported, shall we say.
Right.
So I would have liked to see them include more stuff they shot later on and leave out some of the stuff towards the beginning.
Yeah. I also really love when Short Round's like, maybe he likes older women.
Oh,
Savage. Savage.
oh.
Okay, so now is the time in the episode where we do our rosebud and thorn. Jake, what are your rosebud and thorn?
So I got 3 roses here. I'm giving one to Harrison Ford as Indy. He's great. He's always great. He's what makes this whole franchise. Even,
Sure.
we see some, like we pointed out, we see some different sides to Indy, different traits to him. So I enjoy that, even if I don't necessarily enjoy this whole movie as much as I do some of the other installments in the Indy franchise. It's still an Indiana Jones movie, and it's still epic and badass in its own right. So there's that. I'm also going to give a rose to Huy Quan as Short Round. So good. He's funny. He injects a lot of levity, but also a lot of heart. He
Yeah.
has some really interesting and tender moments with Indy, especially when Indy's like in that trance and when he kind of snaps out of the trance. I think Short Round injects a lot of levity and heart, and I think those are 2 things that this movie desperately needs to kind of hold it back from the edge of the cliff of going to complete like darkness and
Yeah.
sanity. And then Mola Ram, like I said, he's such an interesting villain. He's such a different villain for Indy to face. It's a wonderfully terrifying performance, and so I really enjoy it. And like, let's be honest, if you hear that evil laugh, like that is like one of the peak evil laughs. I feel like his evil
Oh,
laugh,
yeah.
like if that every time I hear it, like sends like a little bit of a chill down my spine.
And I can just audibly hear him say Kalima.
Yeah,
Kalima.
yeah,
Kalima. I'm like, dude, this dude, he nails that line
yeah.
every time.
So yeah, those are my 3 roses. Buds, I've got 2 of them. One is Willie Scott, really just as a character, like she's so flat and 2-dimensional. But like I pointed out, there are a couple scenes where I feel like she had some promise. So that's why it's not a thorn, because I know like we could have done more with her. We could have made her more likable, but it's just for whatever reason, she's not. She's annoying and two-dimensional and flat. Um, so that's gonna be a bud. And the other bud is it's too dark. Now I said this is a bud and it's not a thorn because I'm not upset that they tried to go too dark or go darker. Right? George Lucas, decided after A New Hope, hey, let's make another Star Wars movie, but let's take it darker, and created the best Star Wars movie that there is, in my opinion. And a lot of people agree with me. So, like, obviously, like, there's a lot of merit in. I can understand why they would want to be like, okay, let's try this with Indy. I just feel like they went too far. It's this movie. I guess perhaps the best way I can sum up this movie is it's unbalanced, right? Whereas Raiders felt so balanced in all its aspects, this movie doesn't feel balanced. It's too dark, and like Spielberg realized it, so he tried to add like moments of levity, like as they were shooting it. There's the fight between Indy and the big guard in the catacombs, and someone throws a hammer. I can't remember who throws this big mallet hammer, and it lands like comically on someone's head. So like little moments like that, like they were trying to balance that out, but I think it goes too far here. I guess that's what happens when your writer is getting a divorce and your director's going through a
George
bad
Lucas
breakup.
was going through a divorce during
Yeah.
during the making of this. Yeah.
And Spielberg, I guess, had just gotten out of a long-term relationship as well when they were making this. So
And he was about to get into another
ooh,
long-term relationship.
yes. Um, so I think you definitely see like those um negative, that negative headspace for the filmmakers. I definitely think you see it come through in this movie, and I think it's a bit of a detriment to it. And then my thorn is that feast at the palace. I hesitate even calling it a feast because I would eat none of those things. I would have left immediately. Who cares about a damn stone? You're asking me to eat a monkey's brain and some eyeballs. You didn't even tell me what kind of eyeballs these are. It is disgusting. It is grotesque. It has no purpose whatsoever in the story. And so that is my thorn.
Yeah, it's the cornea that's a little crunchy. The rest of it's okay. I've had cow eyeball, so
Oh,
um, yeah, I was
cool.
in an exotic food club in middle school, and we went to a Vietnamese place and had cow eyeball. And no, it wasn't cow eyeball. It was fish eyeball. Fish eyeball. So just imagine flounder. Just
Nope.
the eye.
Nope. Nope.
The fish like Loki looked like
Nope.
flounder. Anyway, I have a few roses, a few buds, and a few thorns. My first rose goes to Huy Quan as Short Round. I could watch a supercut of all of his stuff every day and not entertained. He's so funny. He is like it's like where did Indiana Jones pick up this kid that's now his like best friend? He literally said you're my best friend. I just so funny. Um, I think Harrison Ford gives a great performance. I think his performance um does a patchwork job on some of the holes that I feel like this movie has. And just makes he's so entertaining to watch
Yeah.
as this archaeologist. So those are my two. I gotta give a rose to John Williams' score here. I really like the Temple of Doom score. Um, it's not as iconic as Raiders, but I really do like I like his theme for Willie Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give a rose to him. He's gonna get a rose in like every single one of these movies.
How can you not?
Yeah. My thorn would be the edit, or the way in which the story unfolded. Um, Indiana Jones is an archaeologist. we don't see a lot of archaeology in this movie. And now, granted,
Mm,
you don't see a ton of it in any of them, but you really don't see
yeah.
his knowledge of the stones is the only archaeological element to this.
Mhm,
It's almost like they try to make him like a supernatural action star
mhm,
in a way. So I felt like, but at the same point, that's very pulpy. You
mhm,
know, they introduce him into a kind of weird situation. So I understand why they did that, but Indy's always at its best when there's that archaeological element to it. The
mhm.
understanding of, okay, this is why, or, trying to find some clues. There were no clues here. And so I really, that is a problem I have with this movie. As much as I love Harrison Ford's performance, well, what are you asking him to be? Are
Yeah.
you asking him to be Indiana Jones, archaeologist, um, or are you asking him to be Indiana Jones, like smart action star?
Mhm,
And so I think that on top of also they just needed to, I think, focus the story a little bit.
yeah.
Like decide what you wanted to do because it felt a little all over the place at times.
Mhm,
And make sure that those story points are hit. Now, you can, in between the story points, go your separate way. But if you can continually nail those story points, that makes one, the edit a lot easier, but two, the story more focused. Even if you want to have those moments of levity or those really dark moments, if
yeah.
you could just keep the story points, I think that really would have helped this film. Um, I will say that my bud is also the darkness. I like that they went this angle
Mhm,
because if they were to just do the same thing every time, it would have been really boring. So I like the risk that they took making this movie. At the same time, I feel like once again, it could be like focused darkness,
yeah.
not just kind of making everything dark and then like, oh crap, we need to add some elements of levity. It's like specific plot points or specific scenes, make them darker, but not make the whole thing dark and like, oh crap, we need to add levity to it, if that makes sense. Now we come to the point in the show where we are going to tell each other who we think we are. And since this is Indiana Junes, um, we may have the same pick 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But I am curious, Jake, as to who you think I am.
Um, I don't think we'll have 2 weeks in a row because thinking back to Raiders, both of our picks are not in this movie.
That is true.
So, but I'm sure we will have some repeats as we go through the series. My pick's gonna make you really happy because I think you're short round.
Let's
Um,
go. You
I don't
think
even.
I'm a human W? The human W that is short round?
Okay, I don't even know if like I actually think like you remind me of short round. I just know that like I when I hear his humor, like I know you love it so much. I just think of you.
I
You know what
do.
I
I
mean?
love short round.
So
He's
I mean
like he's
it's
like the human version of the song Deep and Wide. Deep and wide, short and round.
okay. Um,
Yeah.
but
There's a
no, I
fountain of humor flowing, short round.
stop. But no, I mean I sat down, I started this movie, short round popped up that first time, and I'm like, yep, yep, this
Yeah.
is bad. I can't I went down to I mean, it's the last thing on my paper every time. Ben is colon. It's the last thing I write when I fill out my sheet. And I just went straight to the bottom. I said short round.
I got and one, he was outside Club Obi-Wan,
Yes.
obviously named for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And when he's driving and he goes, "Hey, no time for love." Like, bro, this
Uh,
man is like the first Lyft driver. Like, you were the first
truly,
Uber short round.
truly.
Um, for me, you're not a character as much as, so if you guys don't know this about Jake, Jake's favorite animal is the elephant.
Yes.
And so you are that one elephant that has a personality. And I'm not saying because you love elephants so much. I mean, how many times have you gone to the zoo for the elephants? Well, every time you go to the zoo for the
Every
elephants.
time there's elephants at the zoo.
Yeah, that is. I thought that was like a funnel cake.
Nope, nope. It's an elephant.
It's like, did you just go to the zoo?
Here's
Yeah,
another elephant. These are just things that are just on my desk. Trinkets that are on my
right.
desk.
Yeah, and
And
here's my short round. No,
I
yeah.
have 3 elephants on my desk. Like, yes, I love
So,
elephants that much.
so you are definitely that elephant, and also
Gross.
Willie deserved all of the water blown on her
Yes.
because she's like, "Oh, it's expensive stuff." I'm like, you well,
Hey,
don't.
they always say that
You need to
animals are the
have
best.
you need to have a deodorizer. It's not, you don't just spray perfume over it. You have to Febreze. Here's my Febreze. It's a deodorizer. So it doesn't just, and it's a natural propellant, but it's an air freshener. So what it does is it traps the bad, I mean, you've seen the commercial. It traps the bad particles in a layer of freshness. And so for you to just take Dracar Noir and pour it everywhere on this elephant is a fool's errand because it's just going to make the elephant smell like a mixture of elephant and Dracar Noir. And if we know anything about Dracar Noir, we know that Michael Scott couldn't land that date because he used the Rite Aid version of Dracar Noir. How much longer do you want me to keep going on this?
Oh my gosh. Wow, I didn't see us going here at all with this episode. Um, deodorizers.
That's the clip, by the way. We just found the clip. That's the clip.
Yep. Yep, that's the
I
clip.
went long enough for it to be a minute. That's the clip. We're doing
Oh, mercy. Yep. Hopefully that's gonna make us blow up on socials.
it. Anyway,
Um,
now is the time that we're gonna give some final thoughts for this second installment of Indiana Jones. Jake, I'm passing it off to you. What are your final thoughts for Temple of Doom?
Final thoughts. This movie is better than I remembered it. It's still not my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Like I said, I'm gonna withhold if it's my least favorite still. Till we get
Yeah,
through
I
all
know.
of
For
them.
both of us, we haven't seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in so long that
I
it's
know.
like we just know that it's bad, but we
Yeah.
don't remember how bad it is.
And it's like, okay, I will say, like, this in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like they are the lesser two Indiana Jones movies. They're still
Yeah.
Indiana Jones movies. So I still love them, right? Because like this franchise is just so epic. But no, this on this rewatch, I liked this movie better than I remembered it. Um, there are still, some shortfalls of it. There are still some things that I don't sit well with me. I think that could get done better. Um, but it's still, a solid movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of the same boat. I liked this more than I remembered that I liked it, but I liked it not because it was Indiana Jones film as much as I just liked Harrison. I just liked certain elements of it.
Yeah.
It always in the minecart sequence, it just didn't feel natural.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of felt like an addition, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So this movie is definitely flawed. It's entertaining, it's dark, and flawed, but I mean it still holds up
Yeah.
as a good film. And there are, and I mean it has short rounds, so uh I would watch a short round series
That
or
would
a short
be
round movie.
that would have been
That
something.
would I would watch it. I would watch that. And that would be the way to go, especially he just won an Oscar.
Yeah.
But no, this movie holds a special place in my heart. But I'm not going to tell you it's better than Raiders. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we're going to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts? Do you like Temple of Doom? Had you seen Temple of Doom? What are your Rosebud and Thorn final thoughts, opening thoughts? We love to hear from you. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Make sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell to get all notifications on upcoming content. Obviously, we are stuck right in the middle of Indiana Jones, so we got some more stuff down the pike for you. Make sure to head on over to Instagram and Twitter. Follow us on the Cinephile over there. Make sure to follow Jake and myself. We always post updates and quick reviews of different things that we see. Jake also loves to peruse the I almost said TMZ, TCM stuff. So we have some really cool notices when they have different things. I always like watching. I mean, Jake, you're like my best friend, but I also like watching your story, especially when he has like old Hollywood stuff. And we look forward to covering Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade from 1989 next week. But until then, for Jake Biller, I'm Ben Sparrow. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you back here next week for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And cut.